Hello and welcome to our installation video of Ubuntu 20.04. Okay, so what I've already done is I've set up a virtual machine, okay, and this is up and running, and what I'm looking at right now is the actual boot screen, which is known as the Grand Unified Bootloader Grub. Okay, so I'll walk through what is the typical installation. It's very simple. There's only one or two things I just have to watch out for. So normally if you don't hit anything, this will probably happen automatically. I've hit a key just so I can start the recording, and you can see that I've got this option here called Install Ubuntu Server. So we're just going to go ahead and pick this one, and it's going to go through and it's going to start loading up the operating system. Okay, and we just have to wait. So this is one of these things where you just sit around and you mostly just wait for things. Okay, and of course, your actual machine may end up running a little bit faster. This just happens to be a virtual machine over a remote desktop back to a Windows computer, so this is going a little bit slower. Okay, now the installation of Ubuntu 16, 18, and 20 all look very, very similar. They haven't really changed very much. Prior to 16, it did look a little bit different, but most of these will look almost the same. Okay, so first option up is obviously a language choice. If you go off and pick the wrong language, I'm actually not sure how to get back out of that because I've never done it. So perhaps you would like to pick the correct language. So I'm going to pick the first one. All right, and you'll see down here at the bottom, okay, unfortunately you won't be able to see my mouse cursor very much. You have the option, now this happens to be a fairly new version of the operating system, so it's saying, would you like to continue without updating, or would you like to update the installer? Okay, I'll pick the new installer, and I'd say maybe you probably do the same thing, so that you're looking at the same installation steps as what I'm looking at. But even if you have slightly different installation steps, it's going to be quite close. Okay, now the first thing up, you'll see that there's an option here for the keyboard layout. Probably most likely your keyboard layout in your variant is English US, so I would just leave this. If you're really paranoid about this, you can go off and try the identify keyboard. It'll make some quiz questions about it'll ask you to press certain keys so it knows exactly what type of keyboard you're using. For example, some of the UK keyboards have things in slightly different places, but I know I've got a regular English keyboard, so I'm just going to go ahead and do this. Okay, now the next thing up is to pick your network connections. Now, chances are if you set this up and you've only got the single network adapter, like what I did, you probably have something, and you'll probably see it's the name ETH0. Okay, and you'll see it's giving you a DHCP address because I've got a DHCP address or DHCP server already running. Don't make note of this number because the chances are it's going to be different a little bit later. But do go down to the word done and press enter. Okay, next up is a proxy address. Now, if you actually need to use a proxy in order to reach the rest of the internet, you can go ahead and type this in. I'm not using a proxy here. Most people at home are probably not using a proxy either, and if you are using one, then you'll know what to put in here. So this can probably be left blank. All right, the next thing up, it's going to ask for the localized mirror of the archive so you can get all of your stuff downloaded quickly. And since I'm located in Qatar, you can see that it's picked qa.archive ubuntu.com.ubuntu /Ubuntu. So you can just go ahead and pick whatever happens to be there automatically. All right. Now, the next thing up is the actual setup of the hard drive and how it's going to be configured. Because this is not really a course about Linux servers, I'm going to sort of take the easy way out, and I'm going to say use an entire disk Okay, and you can see I've got a 30 gig disk here, and I'm going to set up the disk as an LVM group. Again, if you know more about what's going on, then you can come down to this custom storage layout. Maybe what I'll do is I will do a small video tutorial about setting up some custom groups and why you might want to do this. But the purpose of the tutorial right now is simply to get things up and going. So I'm just going to go all the way down to the word done, and I'm going to pick this one. All right, and finally what it's going to do is going to show you confirmation about how this is going to be set up, and you have the option here of going in and changing things, but I'm going to leave everything alone as it is, which again is going to be good enough just to get a simple server up and running so that I can focus on Apache configuration. So I'll just pick the done, and of course what's going to happen is it's going to say, well, this will erase everything. Do you wish to continue? And of course I do. All right, next up, you need to provide your name. So you can provide any name that you want. Okay, the name of the server is something that's going to appear on the command prompt later when you log in. So I'm going to call this Web Server Management Demo, so WSM Demo, and you can pick a username. Okay, so usernames are pretty flexible. This is what you're going to be using to log in. So I'm just going to use my first name, but you can use lots of other things, but there are some restrictions, like you might not be able to use spaces in this and so on. And of course, you also need to give yourself a password. So I will give myself a password here. I'll type the same password again. All right, and of course what will happen is when this account gets created, I will log in as the username Robert. I've got a password here, and this is my actual full name, so it appears in certain places under reports and so on. And this person that we just created will become the very first administrator, so you will have access to be able to do whatever you want as this person. Okay, so down here to done. And okay, this one right here, it says, would you like to install the OpenSSH server? And yes, this is one of those things that you definitely want to include. So I'm going to hit a space to include the X, but I'm not going to be importing anything else. Okay, but this one definitely is required. If this isn't here, you're going to have some problems connecting to this later using SSH. You'll have to come back to the console and actually set up the OpenSSH server, perhaps something for another time. Okay, the next thing is a bunch of featured server snaps. So what this is Ubuntu trying to be helpful because they know there's a bunch of things that tend to get installed when the machines are set up. At the moment, I'm going to leave all of these empty. Okay, none of these things I'm really not interested in installing at the moment because I want to have kind of a clean machine. If there are things in here that you really want, okay, fine. But I do warn you that there's a couple of things that do install network adapters, and this may end up causing you some trouble. For example, let me see which one. Docker, for example, actually causes me all kinds of conflict problems at work. Okay, so I can never actually install this. That doesn't mean it doesn't work, it just means that it causes some network address conflicts. In any case, all I'm going to do is I'm going to come all the way down here to the bottom to the word done, and I'm not going to install any of these things. So if you're following along for this exercise, I would suggest maybe just leave everything empty at the moment. Okay, so here we go, and now it's really just a matter of waiting. So you can see it's going through, it's done a bunch of configuration stuff, and it is doing an update. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be quiet, and I'm going to speed up the installation. Then I'll come back in a few seconds. So you'll see everything kind of go quick, then I'll come back when it's time. Okay, and you can see right now it's doing a download and installation security updates, and I have the option at the moment to actually go ahead and cancel the update and reboot right now, but we might as well let the thing finish. Okay, so this may not be all of the updates, but this will be quite a few of the updates, so this will take a little bit more time. Okay, so again, we'll just sit back and wait for this to finish. Okay, And this is finally done. That was, so although I sped it up quite a bit, that was really about 6 or 7 minutes. Okay. All right. So the final thing it's going to ask you to do is just to go ahead and reboot, which of course we need to boot up the real operating system. So we'll let that reboot. Now it's probably going to give me some complaint about the about removing the installation medium, and I think that my virtualization machine has already done that. So I'll just press enter. Okay, so big surprise, I'm running Hyper-V here, but of course your boot screen may look a little bit different depending on which system you're using. All right, but of course this is the actual Ubuntu boot system. Okay, so let this thing run. Just a couple of seconds, usually less than 1 minute, and you'll get yourself a login prompt. Okay, so finally we've given ourselves a login prompt, and I'm going to warn you that you just saw it right there. It looked like it was ready for you to type something, but then it's got some more stuff that suddenly appears. Okay, so unfortunately, this is the problem about working on the console is sometimes messages appear even though it's waiting for you to type something. Suddenly these extra messages appear as well. So we'll give it a few seconds just to kind of stop doing all of these things. Then we'll actually log in. So that's pretty quiet. No, still thinking, still thinking. Okay, so how long will this take? Well, you can see that obviously I don't want this type of thing appearing as I'm actually trying to get logged in because it gets a little confusing. But usually 30 seconds is enough. Okay, so I'm thinking maybe that was enough. Okay, and of course what you see on your screen might be a little bit different. So I'm just going to press enter. Okay, and that'll give me back my prompt. So login, of course, is the name that you gave. So I'm using Robert. And the password was the password that you just gave. And you'll notice that while you're typing, you don't see anything. So that's a little bit different than, say, some other systems where you see stars appearing as you're typing or dots. But here you don't see anything at all. Okay, so now we're finally logged in, and there's a couple of really important things now that we need to decide on. Okay, first of all, you can see here on this particular line there are 47 updates that still need to be installed. Okay, I'm going to do that as something separate. All right, that's one thing. And the next thing is the IP address. Okay, so you can see here on this line right here, sorry, if I move the mouse any closer, it'll disappear. It's, same line says memory usage. It says IPv4 address for ETH0 is 192.168.68.133. So what this is the address that came from my DHCP server, and this is the way how we're going to access this machine unless I make a change. All right, and I'm going to make a change, but not part of this video. Sometimes this message does not appear, and if it does not appear, then what you can do is you can type the word ifconfig. Oh, sorry, IPADDR show, sorry. ifconfig is an old tool. Now this is the new way. And you can see that I've got two network adapters. Number one is called LO, which is a local or loopback adapter, 127001/8. And here's the actual one that I'm interested in, which is ETH0, which is 192.168.68.133/24. Okay, and that is the one that we're going to be most interested in. Okay, so that is all for today's video. So I'm going to stop this one and I will go off. And of course, one of the things we want to do is we know that there's some updates. So I will do the updates as part of a separate video.